Emotional scenes as the remaining 20 living Israeli hostages were released by Hamas to the relief of their families and loved ones. In the occupied West Bank, 250 Palestinian prisoners were given a hero's welcome after being set free under the deal. President Trump, who brokered the peace plan, addressed Israel's parliament and said it was a moment everything will change for the better. And there were celebrations in Gaza too, as 1,700 Palestinians who've been detained by Israel were also released. But amid the joy, there's also the grim reality of what the detainees are returning home to. The vast majority of homes in Gaza have been destroyed by Israel's military action. Half of all hospitals are not operational, and aid is desperately needed. And there are now security concerns too. Here's our correspondent Cedral Karia on the ruined lives and dreams.
For Fawad, this was once a place of sanctuary and of family. Now only ruins remain. He has returned to a home that no longer exists, picking through the rubble, searching for traces of the life he once knew. Everything my grandfather, my father and his brothers worked for, he says. We never imagined it would all turn into ruins like this. This was my cousin's graduation robe. I can't imagine how he feels seeing his home, his room, his robe. His dream was to study law. He shows us that it's not just dreams that have turned to dust in Gaza, but entire neighbourhoods, leaving futures without certainty. What remains is a graveyard of concrete, the wreckage of broken lives. These images show not just what's been destroyed, but what's been lost. Homes are now either tents or schools which have been turned into shelters. I wish for this to stop and never come again, Sundas told us. I want to get back to school and become an adult. Amid the devastation, though, a fragile order still clings on. Hamas gunmen are back, moving through the streets to reassert control after the ceasefire. Clashes with local militias have flared in parts of Gaza City. Hamas's mobilization is no surprise, a show of strength as questions grow over who will rule Gaza next, a move that could yet complicate the US-backed plan calling for the group to disarm. But for most Gazans, the battle is not for power, it's for survival, a population on the brink of starvation. Today, another convoy of aid made it through, a trickle of relief in a sea of need. Those on the ground in Gaza say people face a daunting task of rebuilding their lives.
We're really prioritising nutrition supplies to fight the famine here in Gaza City. We're prioritising the production of safe drinking water for people. And we're also really focused on making sure that people can survive winter, which is just around the corner. The scale up of aid needs to start now, and it needs to be hundreds of trucks a day to meet the vast needs here in the Gaza Strip.
For many, survival itself has become an act of quiet defiance. The people of Gaza cling to what's left, the promise of tomorrow and the flicker of hope. Cedral Karia, ITV News.
Well, let's go straight back now to our international editor, Emma Murphy, who is in Jerusalem. Emma, the images we just saw in that piece there showing how huge the immediate job is to provide food and shelter, but also the incredible effort it's going to take to rebuild Gaza. Who is that job going to fall to and who's going to pay for it?
Yeah, effort and money, Mary, and that is quite a tricky combination when it comes to getting people to really pledge and deliver. Of course, partly what Donald Trump was doing today when he was meeting all those different leaders of nations was kind of rattling the bowl to see who'd put the money in. And of course, that will be part of the conversation. But I think discussion about the rebuilding of Gaza is really very premature because we haven't yet even got to a point where anybody is convinced apart from possibly President Trump when he gives it the big, the big sell, that there is a lasting peace. And that is absolutely crucial, because nobody is going to start to invest if they are going to see those investments blown up within months. And then there is the other issue, that is, how do you convince people to stay there? Because people lived in Gaza and lived a dignified life. They had schools, they had health facilities, they had a social life. Now they don't even have homes with walls to live in. How do you convince a family that it's okay to stay there when they can't even keep their children warm, keep their children safe, or even in the longer term educate them? So yes, rebuilding is absolutely crucial, but there's so much more to it than that. And safety and security is the absolute priority. And if that is not guaranteed, and if there is not a really concerted and long-term effort to do that, there will be no point in rebuilding, because there will be nobody who feels that they can stay there.